From Washington, I'm Robert Christian, and this is The Robert Christian Show. Donald Trump sparked outrage on Wednesday when he encouraged Russian government to find and leak Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails that were deleted from her private server as she served as the Secretary of State. That is actually making the news. Pinata got he got a hold of this, and he says that I think that this is beyond being pale. He truly is not qualified to be President of the United States, speaking about the Donald. Folks, in other news, Philadelphia making history once again. Philadelphia, as the first female major party nominee for president, Hillary Clinton said on Thursday that the American faces the moment of reckoning over the economy, not tourism, but terrorism, national unity, and the candidacy of Donald Trump. What do you all think? We will be right back.
You're watching The Robert Christian Show. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
And good day, everyone. Wow, what a day that it is. It's a great day to be alive, I think. If you ask me, well, you didn't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania once again made the news and made history. And thank you, Maestro. As we are looking at the potential candidacy for Clinton, for Hillary, there are millions of people who do support Hillary. Some don't. Some would prefer Bernie Sanders. Some would prefer the Donald. But I question, and I want everybody to think about this, as a paramount issue number uno on your day today. Because a lot of people have said, oh, Hillary is bad. Oh, Hillary's coming to get your gun. She's going to take away the Second Amendment right. But realistically, I can sit back and say, really? Next. Meanwhile, out of Havana, Cuba, white-haired, thin, and bent, and nearly 90 years of age, Fidel Castro making the news. And by the way, did you know that an envoy troop from the United States is actually in Cuba because they are going to be bringing back into the U.S. some of Cuba's best doctors that have a cure that has worked, apparently, for cancer. Now, why couldn't America come up with something similar on their own? Well, we're going to get into that later. So, yeah, Fidel Castro and his upcoming birthday. Yep. The inspiration. You know what? And I don't get this. I honestly don't. When it comes to Cuba, ladies and gentlemen, I don't see what the big deal is about it. I think it's fantastic that trade deals, the embargo finally with Cuba is finally nearing its end and coming to an end. U.S. airlines are now going to fly in and out of Havana. I think it's a lovely idea, but I really wonder, would that have ever happened under any other president besides our present president, in whom that I do trust, in whom that I do think that he's done a good job. That's me. Let's see. Oh, boy. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton will receive their government intelligence briefing within days, even as each party agrees that the other's nominee is not worthy of receiving such sensitive data. A U.S. intelligence official familiar with the process has confirmed this to CNN News this last week. The briefings could be held any time after Clinton accepts the nomination. Well, what happened last night? but are most likely to begin as soon as next week once that the arrangements are made about the timing and secure government locations are made. The Republican and Democratic vice presidential candidates Mike Pence and Tim Kaine will also receive these briefings. So again, we are going to be following suit with that. Amazon, if you like Amazon, guess what? If you have stock in Amazon, guess what? Their stock jumped 31%. At a 58% gain. That's insane. Okay, this other news story, what is this? This last news story, where did it go? Oh, yeah. Fox News ignored one of the most moving speeches given from the Democratic National Convention this week. Did you catch this? The conservative cable news channel did not show its own viewers a speech given on Wednesday, given by Christine Lennon, I believe that's how you would say her last name, whose son was among the 49 killed in a mass shooting at a gay nightclub in Orlando called Pulse Club last month. The speech of the mother of Christopher brought tears to people's eyes. It was extremely motivating and extremely well crafted. But Fox News did not like it. Hey folks, let us take a short break. When we come back, our guest with us, Len Rosen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what a joy it is that you have allowed us into your home, into your car, wherever that you are around the world. Folks, I am Robert Christian, and we are joined by our special and featured guest today, Len Rosen. Hello, Len.
Hello.
Well, you know what? News talk, it never does fail to amaze me as to how quickly the news and how quickly the world does ultimately change. So let me ask you this, because this is supposed to be. So, okay, I'm going to poke fun at this story a little bit, just a little. But this is supposed to be the last day on Earth, because some more doomsday profiteers, prophecy, right-wing, whatever, people have said, guess what? The world is going to end today. What do you think about it?
No, I'm going to keep on going and let God decide when the world's going to end, because I don't know. I think I've heard a lot of middlemen in my life and middlewomen who basically say, this is the way it's going to be. Here's when doomsday is going to occur. And if you do that, you will be damned. But I'm going to wait.
Right. Well, you know what? I think, Len, that a big part of it, a big part of the problem is that messages like that are messages that are so laden with illicit wannabe facts or laced with fear. We already live in a very troubled world and a very troubled society, and we certainly don't need to have fear knocking on our back door again. So, Len, let me go switch gears real quick. That was just sort of for fun. Like I said, I had to poke fun at that, at least a little. Where's my cartoon sound effects? That would have been a good one for that, right? Looney Tunes, right? Anyway, Len, tell us a little bit about you and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to see you. Basically, I'm a film director, producer, TV director, producer, originally from Toronto, Canada. I've traveled all over the world. Film has been a part of my life since I was a kid. I'm going to say a word that probably a lot of our young viewers might not know about, but Super 8. Back in the Super 8 days. Now our age is kicking in, maybe. But excuse me, back in the day, my father used to have a Super 8 camera, and I just was fascinated by it because he used to make little animations with Tinker Toys and all that, and I used to just watch them. And I was never really heavily into animation, but I was fascinated by, well, here it is, now it's on the screen, and then that little, moment of excitement when we're waiting for it to get developed, the film's going to get developed, and then about $25-$30 later, for 3 minutes of film, we had this amazing thing that on the screen, and it's like, wow. It just took me. And I was never a movie watcher in terms of the way the public goes to see movies. I was always looking and saying, now how did they do that? Now why did they do that? Now what's going on here? And then I would literally visualize. Every time I'd be walking to school or whatever, I'd be like, I'm picturing myself being filmed in a movie. I'm picturing this car driving by, and I would just watch it go by and pretend I'm filming it. And these things would just go into my head. And then over the years, I got my first video camera, and I locked myself in my room, and I just made videos, comedy videos, all kinds of things. And it just developed. I would practice doing voices. Because before that, just to backtrack a tad, a friend of our family's, used to babysit me. And while other kids wanted a basketball, wanted a baseball catcher's mitt, or checkers or chess, I wanted a tape recorder. Give me a tape recorder. She used to be a teenager at the time. I would lock myself in my room with a tape recorder, and she could talk with her friends on the phone. No problem. Give me a tape recorder, I'm gone. And I just play with it, hear my voice back. Then when I got video, I'd video myself. And it just became this obsession with making things. And
well, let me ask you this, Len. In your opinion, I mean, I can answer the same question. For me, I would say absolutely. But
Yeah.
when you were a kid, were you what they would consider a geek?
Yes.
You know what? I was too. I don't know what it is about. My deal was I would take apart radios, old radios, the tube type radios. I'd take those suckers apart and have 50 pieces, and put them back together because I wanted to figure out what these things did, how that these radios worked, and why. To me, that was always a cool thing for me. And then later in life, television came along, and then now in this format, we have the audio, of course, but we also have video, which it's amazing. So, Len, you got a video camcorder, right? Which one do you like best? Did you like Super 8?
Like Super 8 I used to love because it's just that feeling of film. Film was like, and what I could do is I figured out, I did this Superman movie once, and I waited for the film to be developed, and then what I would do is I film myself before going like, or like this, and then I'd wait for the film to be developed, and I'd get this long strip of film, and I'd go in there with the magic marker, and I tried doing it on one side of the film, but it kind of rubbed out. So I did it on the other side and found it sticks. So I just drew these little lasers out of my eyes, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Frame by frame, the kind of early rotoscoping.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, I loved Super 8, but video had that thing where I could go back and erase. I could do it. I could make hours and hours and hours of video and torture people, and do all this kind of stuff. But now, Super 8's expensive.
Now, Len, I'll tell you this: some of our viewers are going to know exactly who I'm talking about. You might too, but there was a young man that did an awful lot of home brewed movies and skits, very funny. On YouTube. His name was Fred.
Okay.
And everybody, just a year ago, a lot of people, thousands of people were watching Fred. But it wasn't necessarily what he did, but it's how he said it. That was the key. So earlier you were talking about voices and maybe learning voice, different character voices. How important is that, even today, in voice acting or in television as we know it?
it's an art. And some people might think, well, how's that related to film? Well, it's an art. When I used to watch people, be it my relatives, be it my teachers, and I think one of my high school friends is watching right now, so you know what I'm talking about. Watching the teachers, listening to them, trying to mimic people used to be how I would practice. It was kind of like an art. It was a hobby. But that would help me because I would use that skill to do my comedy videos. And in the same way as when you watch people, to imitate someone, you have to watch their mannerisms, you have to listen to their voice, you have to get every little twinge and tweak and every little thing. So in the same way, when you film, you have to have a picturization. You have to picture your movie ahead of time before you even do anything. And in that way, I have to visualize myself mimicking this person, and I use it as my visualizing skills and auditory skills when doing film. So the two kind of melded together because it would give me something to film. Here, I got this camera. Now what am I going to film? So it would help me that way.
Well, you know what? Even as, okay, I mean, look, I was a geek too, but I remember the very first audio cassette tape recorder that we ever had in our house. I remember that. And for years, I was in audio tapes. I had tapes, right? I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was real bad, Len, because anyway, it was horrifying. But come to find out, about 5 years ago, because we don't have a tape recorder anymore, my partner decided, well, here's a lot of tapes. I can just toss them in the garbage. I have not a clue what was on them. Not anymore. Obviously, it was something that I thought was pretty hip. But anyway, they're gone. But do you think when it comes to audio tapes, I used to do air checks on audio tape, but do you think that the art of audio tapes is finally over? Like now the VCR, it's soon to see its last VCR being made this month, I believe it is.
I think it's not so much the art is over, it's a nostalgia. And people like bringing that nostalgia back, which is why vinyl still hasn't really left us. But in a different way, vinyl is very interesting because VHS, as much as the nostalgia really gets me, it's just, I can't stand looking at that bleeding color and blotched and smudged look. I mean, I look back at some of my VHS tapes because I used to record music videos in the 80s, and I look back at some of them, and it's like the audio is muffled, the video is like smeared. It's like those tapes when you record on slow speed, and it's just terrible. I think it's more of a nostalgia. However, audio cassettes, if done right, they had a good sound to them, but again, it's nostalgia. And I wouldn't say the art is gone because there's still people who like it, but I think it's more of that nostalgia feel. But with vinyl, it's a totally different animal altogether. It's a different. That's a whole other story to get into. But that's a kind of sound you look forward to hearing. But that's part of the nostalgia again. So on the whole, I think it's a nostalgia more than an art.
That to me, I mean, it's amazing because I can look at, from a radio perspective and television, because I've been in media for 30 plus years, and I remember, a lot of the stuff was so, old, lop-eared, like it hardly works. That was the deal. I mean, radio stations back then were built with baling wire and duct tape. But and they worked. That was the interesting thing about it. But now everything is so marginalized into the digital format. I think it's something else. To look at technology and where it's gone. So, with you, Len, how is it that you're making the movies that you're making? How is it that you're doing the acting and the work that you're doing now? Would you prefer working in this present environment, or would you really prefer to go back to the old standard?
Well, actually, in a lot of ways, I'm a film kind of guy, a film buff. I love the look of film. I mean, even those I was watching not too long ago the old Andy Warhol films that he used to pull off, and they had this.
Good.
Again, there's a beauty about film, and everything today is, you've got this super high, 4K, 6K, 8K, 10K, woo! But it's like, there. I guess maybe because I'm an artist and because maybe I miss a lot of that film look. And a lot of the time, you'd be surprised if you Google on the internet film look. You'd be surprised because a lot of people who aren't filmmakers think, well, what's a film look? Well, a film look is when you watch something like, if you watch a film like, I remember this happened very interesting. I was at some of my friends' homes and they put on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
Now, I remember that film when I was like a kid, and you see it's film. But now they got these new televisions which have this, it's this 60 frame, 60F picture, and when you watch Raiders, it looks like it was filmed with a camcorder. It's got a different frame rate, and it has that live look of reality TV. So there's a difference watching reality TV, which is videotaped, and watching, let's say, an episode of, I don't know, an episode of The Odd Couple, which was on film. One has a real live look and one has a real film look. Now, what does this have to do with what you're asking me? Well, to answer is, before I digress too much, I like the beauty of that film look. I like that art. So I think I'd still like to have that. There's something missing about it. It's got that lost feeling when you watch it. Because originally films are usually filmed at 24 frames per second, which gives a certain look, as opposed to 30 frames per second, which looks like it was taped with a video camera. It has nothing to do with quality, but it's more that live look versus that, film look, if that makes sense.
A lot of movies, though, Len, as you know, and a lot of television shows, they're out for the polished look. And I think that with a polished look, that's sort of like going from AM to FM.
It is.
But it's the AM quality of movies, of film, of radio, even that seems to be becoming the lost art.
So I'll tell you one thing on that. Now you got me back on the track I was before, but because I'm sorry, I digress. It's my fault. I digress because
It's all right. It's all right.
So it's my fault. I apologize. But this whole thing with, I refuse to watch Laurel and Hardy, the Three Stooges, colorized. I'm sorry, I can't do that. Like what you just said, there's something about it being in black and white that has that nostalgia that we're used to. I do agree with rescanning and touching up and, doing that with film, like what they did with a lot of films recently with films like Taxi Driver. They rescanned to 4K. There's other films I heard about, they rescanned to 4K. Brilliant. I love it. Cleans it right up, but it's still film. It's still the masters from film. I don't like when they do it in this live video look or another kind of thing. It's polished, but there's a difference between polish and clean. So if you're talking about rescanning, 4K scanning, like with Blade Runner, they did that 1,000 times. I love that. But in the most recent Blade Runner release, they recolored it, re-edited it. Now that's too much. I want the nostalgia, but clean is one thing. But polished, it depends. It's one of these kind of barrier things.
Well, I'm one of those, I guess, that are a glutton for punishment at times when it comes to old television movies. Some of the old television movies, they're still in black and white. Leave It to Beaver. Some of those are in black and white, right? Perry Mason, those are in black. You bet. But could you imagine, though, if they decided to bring Perry and put him into a color picture, a color movie, what that would actually do. I mean, talking about the work from back then, going out down the toilet, it really would. Or what's that other one? Oh my goodness gracious, The Twilight Zone. That was another one. Could you imagine seeing that in color? I mean, it's kind of an oddity in thought, right?
It's also because it would be lost. If they kind of released, let's say, for example, Rod Sterling was young and alive today.
Ron Shirley?
Ron Sterling.
Go ahead.
If you will.
Yes.
Sorry. Let's say he was alive today, young, and The Twilight Zone was a brand new show, and it had the same actors and everything, but it was done in 4K and all this type of thing. Again, I don't think it would have the same impact. When you watch it, you go, a classic, you know? It's that nostalgia. It's placed in a certain time. It has a beauty about it. You know, it's like, oh, here's a very beautiful example. Take Mom's apple pie and eat it at home with Mom sitting there in the kitchen, prepared by her. Or take that same apple pie out of the home and go eat it at a restaurant in front of a table, and a waitress will serve it to you. Same pie, same recipe, but given in a different setting, in a fancy restaurant, whatever have you call it, it's not the same pie.
Len, let me ask you this. You know, look, we've been sort of around the top of the volcano. Let's just jump into it. Both feet straight in. Think about this, because there are two versions of the famous Hollywood movie. Oh my goodness gracious! I'm trying to remember all of the characters in it, but anyway, it's The Wizard of Oz. There's the one that is colorized, that is halfway in color, half of it in black and white. Then there's the black and white version of it. Which one? This is why I'm a glutton. Which one do you prefer?
Both, because it's part of the story. And the black and white, I mean, it was part of the story, and it worked so well. It just worked. I remember the black and white being like a kind of a sepia tone, like a kind of a brown tint.
Yep.
And I remember that it worked well because it was part of the story. Her dream suddenly was in color, and her bland life, the life that she was used to, was this black and white. It just worked well that way. I think in that example, it just worked well because it was part of a story. But if the whole thing was in color, I don't think that fantasy feel would come alive the way it did, the way they produced it.
Well, Len, at this juncture in the show, and ladies and gentlemen that are watching the live show, welcome to the live show. We cover an awful lot of things on the live show, as always. But now that everybody has their popcorn, and everybody's sitting in their theater seat there, Len, let's put this in third gear. Tell us a little bit about Len. Give us about one minute of sort of an intro about you, and then we're going to go for our bottom of the hour break.
I'm Len Rosen. I was born in Toronto, Canada, July 6, 1972. I have, since I was a child, I've always taken film as something I've eat, slept, drank, walked, whatever you call it. I've always been fascinated with film, how films were made, and I'm a story writer as well, and I just loved the acting and the being in that fantasy world of film. So over the years, I basically just made films, more and more and more videos, more and more, till I gradually stepped up and up and up, and here I am in Los Angeles, California with a new show. I think that would be about the 1 minute version.
Hey, that's good. You're good. All right, folks, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break, and when we do return back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be back with Len Rosen and get more information. You know what? He's an interesting man, I think, because he shares a lot of the same values. It's really weird. A lot of the same funky little values as I do when it comes to movie, when it comes to television, when it comes to radio. and the actual art of it. So, folks, we're going to learn more about Len when we do return to the Robert Christian Show. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, it is great to have you back. I was just looking, for those of you that are not following me on Twitter, go ahead and follow me on Twitter, because I tell you what, folks, I was just looking at and I'm not going to give away the company, but there is a new wine company, right? That is following me on Twitter. Why? I don't know. I don't get it. Oddly enough, though, the Skya Show, there's a lot of folks that know what the Skya Show is, and its host, Simon Adkins. That's how we actually met. For the life of me, he just started following me out of nowhere. I didn't know. But Twitter is really a weird thing, a weird little environment on its own. Because, and I get people that follow me from everywhere, and some of these people or places or businesses, I wonder, how did they find me? Of all people, why me? It's kind of really weird. Am I the odd one out? Anyway, hey folks, we are going to get back with our guest, Len Rosen, and I want to find out about the man, find out what makes him tick, what is on his plate in the near future, and perhaps some of the things that he has worked on in the past. This is one guest, folks, I must say, that I can completely go to task with him. Which to me is kind of weird, Len, because that's not the right one. Hold on. Where'd it go? There it is. The thing of it is, though, it's not that many guests that we've had on the show that I can completely go to task with and understand exactly what you're saying. Line upon line. I mean, I guess one geek to another. You know what I mean? Anyway, no offense, Len. No offense.
Hey, I'm proud. I'm geek and I'm proud.
So, Len, tell us a little bit about what is on the horizon and your future, and what kind of things are you presently working on?
Right now I'm working on a new television series, which I developed, over the years, and then we've just polished it off. It's called It's Len, oddly enough. It's basically the premise about, and I'm going to be playing the lead role and directing in it. It's basically about this girl who's a struggling actress in Hollywood. She can't make it, the usual story. Can't pay her bills. She's trying to get a role. She's trying to make it big. And she's been in contact with her stepbrother, myself, who lives in the Arctic Circle. And my character has never been to the city before in his life. He's lived in the Arctic pretty much his whole life since he was a kid. And she's been in communication with him over the years and told him, I don't know what I'm going to do. My parents tell me to go back home. What am I going to do? And my character offers to pay her rent, help her get on her feet, and come down there on the condition that she can help him get his films, because he's a filmmaker in the Arctic in his spare time. She wants to help him get his quote-unquote Arctic films made. Well, sorry, not made, but distributed. So he comes down to LA, he's wet behind the ears. You've got a perfect scenario here for a Jim Carrey, Mr. Bean type of scenario with this bumbling guy who is a child inside.
I love it.
And so, again, we were talking about nostalgia before the break. I'm trying to bring back a lot of that family, wholesome comedy, but have him interact with a lot of the issues today. Because you've got to remember that this show, although it's a comedy, will also a lot of time deal with issues in our society today. And it's from the vantage point of an adult who has literally the mind of a child when he's in a place that, and we all do, when we're in a place we're not used to, that we're a fish out of the water, our mind is like a child, like, wow, But, you know, so it's the same thing. He is totally ignorant of the Hollywood ways, of California culture, of anything. So he's got a pure heart too. So there's going to be an interesting balance of the storyline there, and there's going to be other characters coming aboard. We've got a whole great cast that we put together. We've got Hannah Lochner, who plays Hannah, the lovable hippie neighbor, best friend of Gina Marino, is playing Gina. She's the sister, my stepsister. And we've got Todd Hornsby, who plays, called the Swagger King, who's this cool guy who teaches Len about all these cool things about California, gets him involved in these schemes and everything. And we've got Ariana Serena, plays Ariana, who's the talent agent who lives with Hannah. And we've got a whole other characters that they interact with that make this kind of weird, interaction of various characters. And my shout out to the cast. They're wonderful. I love you guys. And adding a shout out to Leanne Hornsby, fantastic production manager, love her to pieces. All of these people have come together and really make the show, solidify. And wonderful actors who came aboard our sizzle reel, Sherry Stone, Teresa Brown, Chandra Graham, wonderful people who have come aboard and really put this together. Love them all.
Well, you know what?
If I missed anyone, we had a lot of people come in and out. I love you all. You know who you are.
Len, I've interviewed quite a few book authors in the past, playwrights, including Del Shores, the movie director Del Shores. He did the series Sordid Lives, and Queer as Folk on what was it? I'm trying to remember. Showtime, I think it was.
I think that was on Showtime. Yeah.
He was one of the writers for that series as well, and so I've interviewed quite a few of them. But for me, it's always interesting because I've always said, Len, that I want to interview folks. I want to get to know folks that are really the movers and the shakers in the world that we live. It's not just the movie stars that at times people get so starstruck. To me, they're people just like you and me.
Yeah.
But getting to know who's actually behind the cameras and really what is the story behind them, because everybody has a story. And Len, I take it that the projects that you've worked on in the past have all led you up to what you're doing right now.
Yes.
So would you consider where you started as a failure, as a waste of time, or just for a funsy for back then?
I was always a person who is outspoken on human rights. And every film I've ever done, or music video, has always conquered some kind of human rights type of issue. My very first film was called Forgotten Faces. That was a little project I did on my own. I went, where I'm from, Toronto, Canada. I stayed on the streets with the homeless on and off, and it was a real cinema verite documentary on the homeless. And it didn't really have a storyline. It was crudely edited. It was my first film, but really I just got down into that whole society, that it was like the good side, the bad side, And I really wanted the audience to see these are people who have real problems. And these are people that are struggling. These are not people you're supposed to point at and say, get a job.
Yes.
You know, I hate that. I hate when people say that to homeless people, get a job. You know what? They should sit down for a few minutes and listen to what these people have been through. Get a job. There are people who are not homeless who can't get a job. That's number one. The second thing I noticed when traveling around the world is I saw homelessness in in all kinds of varieties when I traveled India, China, because these are societies which, don't get me wrong, beautiful, wealthy, cultural societies, and I've seen both good and bad, because every society and country has good and bad to it. These are some of the favorite places I have in the world, India and China. I mean, I love those places. I mean, I've lived in China for numerous amount of years. I've lived in India on and off over a year or two. And my next film dealt with a homeless child. And they lost their, the mother passed away, the grandfather passed away. She lived with her mother, her mother and grandmother. They both passed away. This was not a documentary, this is a narrative with actors. And I did this film, and I did it with no dialogue whatsoever. It was called Falling Leaves Golden Sky. And it got into the Monaco Film Festival and won Best Screenplay. Now, this film taught me a lot. Number one, I didn't need dialogue to get the film. The film travels through without any dialogue. The second thing I learned is about culture and about the good and bad of humanity, because the story, I'm not going to tell you the ending, I'm not going to give a spoiler alert here, but it does have a happy ending, but basically it tells you a lot about society, the good and the bad. There's good people, there's bad, there's all kinds. And another thing it taught me about this film, which is the plight of filmmakers. Because when I did this film, I didn't even have a camera at the time. And I was tutoring English in China at the time, and I was tutoring one of my students. Her name was Nane, and she's a sweet, sweet, sweet girl, and a very bright student. And she was her father worked for Panasonic, and she went into her toy box and said, "Is this a good camera? How about this camera? How about this?" She gave me the camera to use to film this, and I filmed it. And and I didn't have a good enough laptop to edit, so I went to all these production houses, and they all turned me down. They said, "This is standard def. You filmed it with, oh my God, oh no, we can't do anything with this. Look at how terrible, blah, blah, blah." So what I did, I went home, I didn't fret, I took out my old laptop, it choked, it gagged, but I got the film done, and it won Best Screenplay in Monaco. Which is why I tell filmmakers out there, get it filmed. I don't care if you film it with your iPhone, with your tablet, with your whatever. Get it filmed, and don't let anyone sidetrack you, because they're going to do it. This industry is really rough and they're cutthroat. If you can get over that and just put it out there, you're going to be a success. You all will.
Len, do you think that you're talking about perhaps even Hollywood? I mean, let's face it, being cutthroat. Do you think that they do that deliberately, or perhaps is it because the standard, the bar has been risen so high that in order for you to excel and get a product out, get a movie out, get a documentary out, that the standard bar has been set so high, so you have no choice besides to go through this very tight portal, more or less, before they would even look at you.
I can see both sides of it. I understand why Hollywood does it. I mean, they get bombarded with things. Like, there's like an avalanche of films coming in, and they have a hard time to select. But you got to remember, on the other side of it, there's always this thing with who you know that likes you.
Yep.
And because let's face it, we've seen a lot of things come out of Hollywood that are just crap. Yep. I'm sorry to say. I mean, actually, most of the things I see are very minuscule, and it's not so much Hollywood's fault completely. It's just there's a lot of the things that get that slip through the cracks. A lot of the people who can finance their own films, a lot of the people with advantages and who they're connected to, it's a whole mixed bag. There is no, you have just as much a chance to make it in Hollywood in a way that you do winning the lottery. There's no rhyme or reason about it. But the one thing that you can help you to succeed is that you have to be persistent. You can't listen to negative. You can take constructive criticism, but you can't let negative things get to you. And that's how they filter out who gets to the other side. That's why, I understand Hollywood, why they do that. I understand why they have to filter out. There's just too much stuff. But on the other side, there's a lot of talented people out there who don't have a chance. They have a lot of disadvantages. There has to be something to do.
Len, let me remind you, although I've never interviewed the man, and I would love to. I really would. He is an African-American male. And as I remember, he was homeless. Now, folks, this is how he was found, more or less, how he got his big break. But he was homeless, and as I remember, it was in the Los Angeles basin. And what happened was a bigwig, a highfalutin movie producer saw him, heard this man speak. He had a golden voice for radio, folks, like I've never heard, not in years. And so suddenly he became, I can't say he became a household name, but you knew his voice. Millions did. But the sad thing, that was going from rags to riches, but the sad thing is that as the story progresses, he once again became homeless.
Right.
And I know the reasons why, and it's not what you think, folks. But talking about rags to riches, so going from one extreme to the other, eating out of literally off the street, and then the next second you have fine china and the best lobster that you can imagine eating, and then that's sort of like, here's a little gift for you. Here's a little something, Len. And then suddenly you wake up again and you're back where you started. Mm-hmm. Is that how cruel that the movie industry can actually be at times?
It's the movie industry, the music industry, the television industry. If you suffer from what's called amnesia and you forget where you've been, and you get caught up, because when success comes at you, whoosh, it's like an avalanche.
Yes.
And you have to be ready for it. And you can easily get sidetracked. We've seen this with a lot of people, especially like musicians. They can get so sidetracked a lot of the time, whether it's into drugs, whether it's into a wild lifestyle, spending all their money, going bankrupt. The musicians, I really admire the ones who can get out of that and survive, and the ones also that can avoid it. But I also understand the ones that got affected and couldn't get out of it. Success is, when they say, are you ready for success? A lot of people say, oh yeah, who isn't ready for success? I'm ready for money. I'm ready. How can you prepare for success? Prepare for failure? No, you prepare for success. Because when it comes, you better be ready. that's the thing.
Well, you know what? It's true, and I know that a lot of people try to be successful at everything that they do. I, for one, Len, I do look for success, absolutely. I look for the best in people. I look for the best in opportunity. But the fact of it is that beyond the microphone, right? Beyond the sound stage, I'm still but a human being, and I'm always going to remember and reflect back on where I came from. Thank God that I went through those phases and those times in life, because all of those things brought me to my right now and my aha moment. And Len, just like you have a story to tell too. So I know that we're running out of time as far as the clock goes. But tell us a bit of how can people get a hold of you, and do you do? Great question. Do you do commercials?
I've done commercials. There's What very, very close friend of mine, Lisa Ruiz, has a line of cleaning products, credibleproducts.com. She was featured on the Home Shopping Network many times. Products that include Pink Credible, they're all credible. Pink Credible, Scent Credible, Scrub Credible, and we always filmed a lot of commercials together. And they're on YouTube. You can see them. Just look up Pink Credible, one word, PINKCRED, Pink Credible, and you'll see a bunch of commercials I was acting in and I directed and I filmed. Those commercials that was one of the main set of commercials I've done. I've done a lot of music videos lately. One that I'm very proud of, I did with the actress Polly Perret, who stars on NCIS. This was for the Trevor Project, which benefited the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
And this is a project that's very close to my heart because I'm a strong supporter of the LGBTQ community. And that project was very, very dear to my heart. And I directed and filmed and edited that music video. If you look it up, put Polly Perret, Beautiful Child. And if you watch that, and I believe it's still streamed on the Trevor Project website, but that video I love. It's very touching. The whole story behind it. I mean, that was one of my most proudest projects I've ever done. And I've done a lot of other projects around. I just recently finished a video for the band Halo Circus. Look them up; they're fantastic. I constantly do music videos for the group Gravity 180, who is doing the music along with Veronica Bellino and the smooth jazz artist Nils. They are going to be doing the music for my series. It's Len. And look them up as well.
So when is it's Len? When is this going to actually be released out?
We're going to be hopefully looking at the projected date of the fall season. We're in pre-production right now, so it's a very busy time. But go to Twitter and look at It's Len Show. So it's It's Len Show, one word, and you will find all the updates, everything that's happening with the Len Show, and what's been going on.
You know, Len, you are a fascinating guy, and I could talk to you, for hours. A good example. We've been on the air for the first hour of the show almost 1 hour, and I'm sitting back thinking, where did the time go?
I was thinking that too. I'm like looking up at the clock, going, "Whoa!" It's like,
I tell you what I enjoy doing. I enjoy visiting with folks and making friends, learning more about them, and getting so deep into a conversation. In a good round table, not like here's the question, here is the parameter for the question, answer it, damn it. That's not me. I love to know people and see really what makes them tick. And Len, you have a lot going on. But what I would love to do is to have you back on a live show just prior to your next release coming out. And I'd love to do that. If you're game, I'm game.
I'm game. I'm good with that. I'd be honored. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Len, I love it. I do. And trust me, it is not. You're one of about 3 people that I have had in the last 30 years that I clicked with. Immediate click, right?
Thank you. I feel the same. Thank you.
And so to me, hey, I'm honored. I'm blessed by it. I think it's great. And folks, this media, although I was, on television for years, on conventional radio for years, commercial and non-commercial, but you know what? Now we have this format, which it is so completely different than anything that I've ever done. And hey, I rejoice in it. I really do, because guess what? People have something to say. They still reach out to me, and I think it's lovely. And Len, you are one of those people that do sit behind the camera, but you also have something that you want to say.
Thank you very much.
And so, from my heart to you, thanks a million.
Thank you.
it's the hidden talents, I think, Len, in life that people have. That sometimes we tend to forget. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Do you see how easy that was to make that commercial, or how hard it was? You know, Len, I've told people for a long time that if things are becoming so difficult for you, it's because you're trying to recreate the wheel, and you really can't do that.
Right.
What you can do, though, is you can put shock absorbers on it. You know, you can make the ride a little bit smoother. You can figure out better ways to improvise. But the nutshell of it is that when you're in the entertainment business, or you are in the business of news, like I am, or you know, whatever. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but. You know, you have to learn your craft, and Len, I think that you've learned it. I think you know it well, and you are raising up from you know, the ashes of yesteryear, and to me that's amazing.
Thank you. The most important thing I say to all artists out there is don't try to recreate the wheel or copy, but take out that little wheel that's right here and bring it out and show the world what it is. And I don't care if the wheel looks crooked, or you don't think it's going to turn, or it's got a bump here or a nail sticking out of here. This is what you got to show. This is the little window to your wheel. Show it. That's what I have to say. Absolutely.
Hey, Len, I would sit here and be able to visit with you ongoing. But I tell you what, I will get back in touch with you after today's live show is over, and send you the link to the video once it's up on YouTube, and we'll see if what we can do about getting you back on a live show.
Thank you very much, my friend.
All right, not a problem. Once again, thanks very much, Len. Ladies and gentlemen, Len Rosen. What an incredible young man that he is. Well, I call him a young man. He is a young man, right? Wow. Gee whiz. All right, folks, we are going to take our top of the hour break. Oh, my goodness gracious. Can you imagine that? Nonetheless, folks, we've got a lot of stuff upcoming on the Robert Christian Show, so don't go too far. The Robert Christian Show, live from Washington, will return in just a moment. Live from Washington, the Robert Christian Show. We will return in just a moment.